Thank you so much, Joan, and hello to everybody. I should say that the episode of Cyber Tuesday that we're talking about there, FC is a hacker and cracker. He has his real name is Freaky Clown. Yes, his real name is Freaky Clown. And he, at one point during our conversation, he says the phrase, the first time I kidnapped a man, and then goes on to tell a fantastic story about it. So he is incredible. He's one of the people that, you know, in my industry, I really look up to and just think is a phenomenal person to be aware of. So I'm very grateful to be up here today. It feels, I don't know who that person was that Joan was describing, but he sounds amazing. It doesn't sound anything like my day-to-day role, but you know, it is absolutely fantastic to be here. Thank you to Queen's University Belfast School of Law for having me along. Thank you to Joan and the team, and especially thank you to Kieran at the back there, who is seems to be kind of hiding away, but I'm sure we'll be on stage later. Thank you very much for having me here. And thank you to the sponsors of the event as well. So Herbert Smith Freehills, thank you so much for getting everybody together like this. It is so important that we're here today talking about law and tech. I'm going to be talking about cybersecurity, the law, and also starting up securely. So I got 3 different topics I'm going to get through in slightly different ways. I'm going to talk to you about why does cybersecurity matter. I'm going to talk to you about the law in cybersecurity in an interesting kind of incident where the law and cybersecurity joined together in a quite interesting way for me. And finally, talking about my experiences of founding and running a company, which, you know, hopefully there are some people in the room today who are going to be doing that sort of thing. And you'll learn from some of the mistakes that we made, some of the things we did well, some of the things we didn't do well, but hopefully it'll be useful to you all. So, as Joan said, just a little bit about us and why I'm here talking today. You know, we do 3 different things. We try to do those 3 things really well. For any of the startups in the room today, there's your first hint for the day. Try to do a small range of stuff really, really well. Never try to kind of boil the ocean or that sort of nonsense. Don't worry about that. Just try to do something really, really well. We chose 3 things that we were good at and what we want to do to help our clients. So from the prepare side, for us, it's about training. We teach people how to break stuff. We teach people how to hack and crack and have general fun with computers, doing things they shouldn't be able to do with web applications and various bits and pieces like that. Teach people about threat modeling, key part of something that we've been working on a lot with actually our lawyer who's sitting back there with Keith there. You know, talk about the Cyber Resilience Act and all these new fun pieces of legislation that are coming into play. From the protect side, we do security and penetration testing. That's ethical hacking. That's hacking for fun and profit. Really good fun. We'll see later on how you've got to join those 2 things, the law and cyber and penetration testing together very, very cleverly. And from the final side, we help organizations to be better. And that's one of the things I'm going to be talking about today is how to be a better startup, how to be prepared for when the big clients come along. What do you need to do? What do you need to do to prepare for those for that time when these things come along? In the office, there is a picture of me pointing at a picture of me. At one point, they printed it out, and then there was a picture of me pointing at a picture of me, pointing at a picture of me. I don't know why I continue to use this slide apart from to tell that silly story, but you will maybe see that another time. My starting point in this industry was very different to many others. I actually, many years ago, I went to a place called the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts to study stage management and theatre production. So I was a stage manager. I worked on some light and sound desks, like the gentleman at the in the corner over there. I was in charge of lugging sets backwards and forwards in around and about in a good few places around the world. And I ended up at the Lyric Theatre in Belfast, just over there, in the old Lyric, if anyone remembers it. The old Lyric, where when I worked there, If the actors or anyone who was backstage needed to use the bathroom, they could not do so while there was somebody on stage. Or you would have Willy Lomas walking around on stage talking about how sad he was, and then you just hear a great big toilet flush noise coming from backstage, which kind of spoils the mood a wee bit. But after a little while of doing that, I realized that actors and directors are hard work, that it's a hard job. There's a nodding and agreement from the corner over there, that it's a hard job sometimes. And you end up in Mullingar at 3 o'clock in the morning lifting a piece of set out of a van, and you think, what am I doing? But I decided to go away and do something that I really had a great passion for and had enjoyed doing all the way through my career up to this point. And that was to work in IT, was to do some programming. I went away and did some awesome Open University courses. I was privileged enough to be able to, take some time to go away and do some Open University courses. It was fantastic, really good. Learned some C++ and some Java and some various other bits and pieces. It was really cool, and I was just delighted to be able to have the opportunity to do so. Then I blagged a job, which was quite a lucky thing because I can talk to people, as you can probably tell. I like talking. I like talking to people, and I was able to convince somebody to give me a job in a startup. The startup lasted 2.5 months and then went bust. But I was then able to blag another job on the back of my first job. I should say it wasn't my fault. It wasn't, I didn't do anything wrong. It was just not the right time. Managed to blag a job again where I worked in software development. And I was working in an area that was really interesting at the time. We were working in the oil and gas industry. So what we were doing was we were helping the oil and gas industry to understand, compare suppliers in the North Sea versus Gulf of Mexico. And you got all these big data problems and lots of interesting things happening. It was fascinating to me. Got to travel all the way around the world. I got sent to Alaska for a 4-hour meeting once, which was less crack than it sounds, to be honest with you. But I did get to see a bear. So, I wish I had a photo of the bear, but I did get to see a bear, which was just delightful. Then we started doing some work outside of the US and in a joint venture between a Russian oil and gas company and with BP. And they bought our software and they flew me to Moscow to go and help them set it up, which was, terrifying, great fun, really scary, and I got to go. Actually, went twice in the end. But while I was there, one of the things they talked about was, "Have you thought about security for this application?" And we said, "No, but don't worry, we're really good at this stuff. We're developers. We know what we're doing. It's all going to be fine. Don't be worried. No hassles whatsoever." And when we got back, they organised a penetration test for us, and that penetration test was to break into our application. That's what a penetration test is. It's ethical hackers breaking their way in, and they decided they were going to do that against our systems. Within 20 seconds of it starting, we knew we were in trouble. They actually stopped the test after 20 minutes. They said to us, "There's nowhere else for us to go. We've explored everything. We have no further avenues with which to break your stuff. We've got it all." 20 minutes in. And for me, that was a career-changing moment. That was like when I was working in the theatre and realized I wasn't loving it anymore, that I realized this is what I want to do. This is what I am interested in doing. And watching what they were doing, I could see what was happening. I could see why this small gap that one of the developers had left in the system was then being exploited to then allow these hackers and crackers to do whatever they wanted to get into any system that they were able to do. And so again, I had that career change moment. I thought, yeah, that's it. I'm going to learn how to do that. This was back in 2006. We didn't have a master's in cybersecurity at Queen's University. We didn't have the team at Ulster who were doing some fantastic work around cyber as well. We didn't have any of these vulnerable web applications to play around with. We had nothing. So I just kind of learned how to do it. Engaged the hacker mindset of, if it's supposed to do this, what happens if I do this? Thinking differently. And that's something that's really important in this world, in this cyber world, is thinking differently. So then I got into cybersecurity, and I started a company with my friend Marc, I'll talk more about that in a minute. But I started a company with my mate Marc, we started in 2006, and for a little while we just trundled along and had a bit of crack and didn't work as much as we should have done, and had a couple of clients who just paid us regularly. It was brilliant, real easy life. And then we thought, actually, let's try and do something with our lives instead of wasting them around here. So we started pushing it, and we started thinking about more things and thinking about how we could do stuff. Around about 2010 or so, we both went full time, both went into the business together. One of the things we did, here's a second tip for people. One of the things we did, if you're in consultancy, if you're doing this right, people will pay you for your services. When you have a certain amount of money in the bank, you can jump ship. So that's what we did. We said to ourselves, when we have 3 months' wages for one person in the bank, safe and secure, boom, there you go. You can go in full time. When we had another 3 months' wages, 4 months' wages, whatever it was, boom, then you can go full time as well. And we built up what we were doing over that time. So we were always very conscious of cash, very conscious of money, and very conscious of trying to achieve what we were trying to do. But what does cybersecurity actually mean? Well, here's a slide which talks about some of the things that people think about information and cybersecurity. So my mum thinks I'm a bit of a hacker. She thinks I'm, kind of balaclava on and sitting there and tapping away like that. All the way through to what we actually do, which is, well, we sit in an office and talk stuff to each other, and have a bit of fun. But there are so many different areas in cybersecurity, and I actually wanted just to bring this up from the perspective of the Linus world that I've been interested in for a wee while. I was chatting with Professor English about this. One of the things around this is that there are so many diverse parts of cybersecurity. This is an example of some of the areas of cybersecurity. You've got everything from authentication management. You've got everything here. You've got communication and network security, through to risk management, through to security assessment, through to software security, security operations. These are just some of the certifications that you can get. Okay, it's mad, isn't it? It's not, and if you want to work in penetration testing for my company, there's about 2 or 3 in the middle there that you really need to have. That's what you've got to have. Okay, there are 473 certifications listed on there. It's so wide, so varied. We need people in this industry who understand everything from, what a TCP/IP packet looks like and what the response and request process is for that, all the way through to how to communicate a complex problem to a non-technical group of people. We need everybody to come along and be part of that. And the reason we need that is due to the real life impacts that we see in cybersecurity. So every so often you'll see, someone loses a few quid. I was saying at lunch there, my mum had a real problem with getting scammed recently. She gets people phoning her up and telling her, your internet's broken, you need to pay me 10 grand to make the internet work again and stop all the hackers getting in. And she goes, okay, cool, and does it. And that's money, and that's making people feel bad. And it's one thing, and you've just got to, you can get over it. Real life impacts are what we're really interested in this world. The real life impacts that we see every single day. Has anyone heard of the one on the left there, Colonial Pipeline? Anyone heard of that? Colonial Pipeline is a pipeline that takes petrol from one corner of America down to the bottom. Okay, it's one of the biggest pipelines, and they suffered a breach. They got compromised. Someone broke into their stuff and ransomwared them. Ransomware where they just encrypt all of your data and you can't get access to it. Now in that case they paid the ransom, $5 million. They paid it, but they couldn't get everything back up and running quickly enough. And we'll see the real life impact of that in a second. What about the HSE? Anyone remember the HSE compromise from 2020 down south? So the HSE is like the NHS, and their stuff got popped, to use a colloquialism. their stuff got popped, and they were able to get access to all the systems, to all the data, to interfere with various things. There were delayed COVID results. It was height of pandemic times, if you remember those days. So the delayed COVID results and vaccines. There were regular appointments. There were doctors saying things like, we have nothing. We don't know anyone's medical history because it's all on these systems that are now shut down. Things like that. And we'll look at that again in a second. Again, think about real life impact. So think about this colonial pipeline. What's the worst thing that can happen when someone says, don't panic, buy fuel, everything is fine? What's the next thing that happens? This is what happens. The US Consumer and Product Safety Commission warned Americans on Wednesday not to fill plastic bags with gasoline. I mean, what's that? Is it the Darwin Awards? Is that, yeah. So, I mean, let's not do that. For anyone who isn't aware, don't put gasoline in plastic bags. It's a very poor idea. But these are real life impacts. These are people who are worried. They won't be able to get to work. They might get fired. They won't be able to get to their doctor's appointments. Real life impacts matter more than anything monetary based. I was at Cyber UK, which is the UK government's cybersecurity conference on Tuesday there, and I had the privilege of seeing the new Director General of GCHQ and the CEO of the National Cybersecurity Centre speak. And some of the phrases they used were, ransomware continues to be the most acute and pervasive cyber threat for UK businesses and organisations. They said cyber must be a CEO and a boardroom priority. And it should remind us that all businesses must look at cybersecurity as an integral part of their organizational risk management. So as you're starting up, as you're coming up in the starting your business, starting your product, cybersecurity is the thing that you have to consider. It is game-changing, company-ending stuff that we're dealing with here. What else can we see? Well, here's another example of some of the impacts, the real-life impacts of cyber attacks. Again, you've probably never heard of JBS. I hadn't heard of them until they were compromised, but they own pretty much every, let's call them meat processing plants in the United States. They own a significant amount of them. They got compromised. And what happened there was that they paid their $11 million. They paid 11 million quid in order to end their cyber attack. They were compromised. They could no longer process the animals in the same way. And again, that's I know, an awful euphemism, but it's what I'm going to use. So they couldn't process the animals, which meant that there couldn't be food coming out of the other end, which meant that in some cases, depending on how long things last, there would be an impact on consumers. Food would not be available. If it lingers for multiple days, you will see some food shortages. And that's as the result of a cyber incident, the result of a cyber attack. It is absolutely something we're seeing. It's absolutely something that is causing people problems. And then just around there, these are the quotes from the DG, the Director General of GCHQ, the Queen of the Spies, and the CEO of the National Cybersecurity Centre in the UK. They are both absolutely incredible people to listen to. Their speeches are both available on YouTube. You should absolutely go and watch them and find out what the UK government are concerned about. The HSE, we already mentioned. The release of data from that did actually happen. So they stole and they got into people we know's health information, and they these gangs published it online. These bad actors, as we call them, they published that data online. They put a call out on Twitter. They said, if you work for the HSE and you have your laptop with you, please don't open it or log on or anything because we need the data that's on it. Can you imagine that? You know, you've got the only backup of my medical history is stored in somebody's laptop because they happen to be off for a month on leave or something like that. You know, that is a terrible, terrible situation to be in. You know, that can have a real impact on people. It caused disruption to medical card services. It's not possible to register online right now. So you couldn't even register online. You couldn't do it. You were just stuck with exactly what you were faced with here. And the interesting thing is that they knew the problem existed. Audits were taking place. In here we can see internal audits have identified weaknesses in the area of security controls across parts of the domain, including application password protocols and the management of secure access. We are committed to improving controls in respect of cybersecurity. So, do we think that's a good enough answer? We know it's terrible. We're trying to do something about it, but we're hamstrung at the moment. That is not the way in which we should be approaching cybersecurity. Then there were questions from the board. In response to board questions, the CIO confirmed that necessary controls and mitigations had been reviewed in light of the warning issued by Interpol concerning global ransomware attacks. Whilst at the same time, they confirmed that the health service still had 46,000 Windows 7 devices that were completely out of service. They didn't have any patches, they didn't have any updates, any upgrades going on. Okay, so when you are working in this field, when you're working in technology, you have to be aware of the impacts that your decisions have. Another one that we can see, the Electoral Commission. This happened in 2023, actually happened in, I believe, 2021, and we weren't told about it for a year and a half, almost. Okay, so the Electoral Commission, which holds all it does is hold all the details about every registered voter in the United Kingdom. It's not much, but they were compromised. The names and addresses of all voters registered between 2014 and 22 were open to hostile actors as far back as August 21. So for nearly 2 years, 18 months to 2 years, that information was available to these bad actors. It was discovered last October and then reported to the NCA, the National Crime Agency. But the Chief Executive of the Electoral Commission said the UK's democratic process is significantly dispersed and key aspects of it remain based on paper documentation and counting. Thank goodness. You'd never be more grateful for that stupid wee pencil thing that you get when you go into the polling booth these days. Trying to even consider, what might have happened should the application, should it have been a voting application that was then compromised. We could be dealing with an even more interesting form of government than we currently have. Some facts around this. 85% of breaches involved a human element. So it's people. It's people. That's the big thing. Whenever we are talking to people, to clients, we don't sell technology, I have to say. We don't sell hardware. We don't sell software. We don't sell firewalls. We don't sell any of that stuff. We teach people how to do things better. That's what's so important here. And that's one of the things that we really try to get across. So when you're thinking about technology, think about secure by design. Think about designing your application so that it is secure from the ground up, so that it's not something that is going to be hacked and cracked and messed around with within the first couple of weeks of being out there. So 85% of breaches involved a human element. 13% of non-denial of service incidents involved ransomware. So ransomware, this most pervasive threat, protect oneself by patching, and 3% of breaches involved vulnerability exploitation. So 85% were human-related, 3% involved vulnerabilities. What does that mean? What does that say to us? Well, it says that people need to come first and technology needs to come second. Some more facts. Facts, lies, damn lies, and statistics. Isn't that what they say? 82% of British firms which were victims of ransomware paid to get their data back. The global average was 58%. So tell me, what do you think that says about British companies in the ransomware gang industry? It kind of says, let's do more. We're more likely to get paid. Let's do them. Let's limit our tax to them, and we'll get in, and we'll be rich beyond our wildest dreams. So we've got to be thinking about how ransomware and these attacks take place. We've also got to consider that the average downtime a company experiences after a ransomware attack is 21 days. So your organization could be down for 21 days. I employ, I think it's 18 people now, I know what the day rate is. I know what 21 times that day rate times by 18 is. And that is a lot of money. That is a lot of cash. If we weren't able to operate for that amount of time, that would be could be significant. What I also want to say to you about cyber and about this world of the hackers and crackers is that there is this stock image. There's this idea of hackers and what they look like. We actually don't call them hackers in our industry. We call them bad actors or threat actors. But hackers still is used very much in this world. So we have this. Anyone seen that on a news article? That's a paid stock image that you can buy, and I think you search for the word hacker, and that's what comes out. They're obviously working in a cold data center somewhere because they've got their balaclava and kind of some gloves and all that sort of stuff on. I tried to buy one of those balaclavas for a demo I was doing, but they wouldn't let. I can't get one. I don't know why. Secondly, we've got this fella here who is sitting there with can't work out the Zoom function on his laptop. Don't know why, but this is the image that we see. This is another one. This is teenage hacker. If you search for that on some of these stock image sites, this teenage hacker. You can see in the background he's watching The Matrix and able to do some fun stuff. Anyone seen Superman 2, isn't it, with Richard Pryor? Fabulous film. If you want to look about hacker mentality, watch that film. You got him who manages to work out how to steal 1/4 cent off every single transaction and join them all together. He's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Real hacker ideology going on. And then we got this film. Give me a show of hands if you've watched this film. Anyone seen this? You're my people, right there. If you haven't watched it, stop listening to me now. Go and buy it on Amazon Prime and go and watch it. It is the finest movie about computer compromise you will ever see. So unrealistic and absolute nonsense. And they do a lot of skating, looking sexy and stuff. But it is really, really cool. It's a very, very good thing. But these are the images that we have of hackers, of bad actors. And actually, it's not this. It's like this on the side here. It's teams, it's companies, it's organizations who are looking and operating like a software company. They have development teams. So they say, I see that 85% of British firms pay up. Let's go look at them as a market. Then we find out that a lot of British firms or Irish firms use this piece of software. Let's head towards them. We'll write an exploit. We'll do that, and boom, we're in. They have marketing plans. They have development. They have tech support people who speak the finest English you've ever come across. You can actually phone up and speak to the tech support people at these ransomware gangs if you get compromised, and they will help you do stuff. They will help you buy some Bitcoin to pay their ransom. They're very helpful, lovely people, and they operate like a business. They have the customer care team. They have ticket management. It's absolutely fabulous. It's a really well done thing. It is an industry. That's what we have to be aware of. So when we're thinking about this, we're not thinking about a few kids sitting at home in the basement or in the attic in their rooms. That's not what it's about. It's real, actual companies with turnover and profits to think about. Has anyone heard of the Conti Group? CONTI. Yeah, Conti Group. We saw some fabulous releases from them. Basically, one half agreed with the invasion of Ukraine by Russia, one half didn't agree with the invasion of Ukraine by Russia, and then they and the side who didn't agree with it released all the internal chat logs about the internal workings of the ransomware gang, and they were fascinating. They were talking about, dear HR, I need a new chair. Could you help me with a new chair in my my Moscow office? The air conditioning doesn't work in our place in Spain. Can you try and get that sorted? Absolute madness. Absolute madness. Can see here the value of some of this data as well. So when your stuff gets compromised, what happens? Well, this in some cases. This is real life full-time access to somebody's machine for $10. $10 is all it costs to get access to this information. And you can buy access, you just hit buy, and then you go through, and then you get in, and you can do whatever the hell you want to with it. It's really, really easy stuff in some cases. These sort of things can ruin your day by encrypting all your data, leaking your corporate information. We've got so many lawyers in the room, probably know something about that. Is it GDP, whatever it's called, that thing there. But about the Data Protection Act in the UK, you will need to know, if you have data that gets released out, you will need to be communicating with your lawyers, and there will be issues around that. Internal systems become compromised, can lead to loss of income, investigations, and you can find out very quickly how good your IT people and your backup and recovery procedures are at 3 o'clock on a Sunday morning. Got to think about who's, and then just some idea around this, who's behind these breaches. 75% perpetrated by outsiders, but 25% involved internal actors. So who's the 25% of the people in this room here who are actively selling their credentials to ransomware? Do you want to put your hands up now and we can get it all over and done with? No? So we saw some fantastic attacks over the last wee while. You may have come across Log4j. This is something that ruined about 90% of the tech people's Christmases about 2 years ago. I remember sitting at the airport on my way to England to go and see my mum with the family, and I got a call from a client saying, we need some help. And I was like, oh, we can't do this, I'm aware. And then he said, but we'll help, we'll pay you this. Okay, yes, we'll do that. Yeah. But we were able to help out. But there are attacks like this that happen. Your technology matters. Your choice of technology matters. So when you're building these things, you need to think and you need to consider these. Now, I promised to talk to you about cybersecurity and the law as well. So I'm going to give you a very, very quick rundown here of some areas of which I've been interested in and been working towards. So legal considerations: Computer Misuse Act, GDPR, Data Protection Act, various other bits and pieces. For my team, they could very easily find themselves on the wrong end of an interview table, very, very simply, by falling foul, especially of the Computer Misuse Act, which was described to me as by a police officer as being a sledgehammer to crack a nut in some cases. You know, it's a big old beast of a thing. And it hasn't really been updated since 1990. There have been various different case laws and things, but actually it hasn't changed hugely. And I mentioned this to a cop friend of mine, and he said yes, but neither has the offence of GBH hasn't also been updated since 1880 or whatever it was. Someone here will be able to tell me. But Computer Misuse Act says that there are 5 different areas. Unauthorized access. If I leave my laptop sitting around and someone starts playing around with it, that's unauthorized access potentially. If you do that with an intent to steal my bank account details, then that's Section 2. And if you do that with the hope of bringing down the Queen's University Belfast network, then that could be around Section 3. If you write a tool to help you to do that, then you could be falling foul as 3A. And if you impact critical national infrastructure, hospitals, important things, then that would be a Section 3ZA. Okay, so I won't go into all of those things, but it applies to anyone where the target computer must have been in the UK or the accused is a UK national. There's various different things that apply to it. And there is actually a campaign. If anyone's interested in the Computer Misuse Act and the way in which that works, there is a campaign to update the CMA called Cyber Up. So I would very much recommend having a look. And one of my stories that I always like to talk about is, about my involvement with the Computer Misuse Act and how it, as a cyber person working in tech, how that impacted me. Anyone heard of WannaCry? Came across WannaCry? Yeah. So a perfect ransomware storm, rapidly moving ransomware attack spreads to 74 countries. Looked like this, and I was reading about this outbreak with great interest. I was confident that all our stuff was safe. We were all grand. It shouldn't be a problem. We were discussing it with our clients. This could have been the global ransomware meltdown we'd all been hearing about and thinking about. And then I became a bit more involved because during the weekend of the 12th of May to the Monday the 15th of May, according to them, in the eyes of PSNI Cybercrime Unit, the NCA, and probably a few other agencies that I'm unaware of, my business partner and I and another party were apparently prime suspects with potential involvement in the NHS ransomware attack. I know, mad, isn't it? We got discussed at Cobra. You heard of Cobra? That's cool, isn't it? Wasn't cool at the time. I learned of this involvement when I received a call from my father-in-law on a Monday morning. He handed his phone over to a very stern-sounding police officer who informed me that we needed to meet urgently to discuss my potential involvement in this NHS ransomware. They were serving a warrant at my home, which entitled them to search the house and investigate all the electronic goods. I later discovered that there was also a warrant against my business partner's home address and our office address. They entered, inventoried every piece of electronics in my house, which is a significant undertaking when you're as nerdy as I am, over the course of 3 hours, and did the same in my business partner's home as well. I remember the first thing I did was I phoned my wife to say, I arranged to meet the police officer at our office, and the first thing I did on the way over there was I phoned my wife and I said, listen, I don't know what's happening. The police need to speak to me. I'm going to the office to speak to them. I don't know what's going to happen, so you might need to pick the kids up from school. First thing she said to me is there anything I need to know? Instantly thinking, what have you done now, you idiot? So, but thankfully I had done nothing wrong. We sat on the wrong side of an interview table, which, let me tell you, is an unpleasant place to be. Very, very unpleasant. We found out that a client of ours had been using a VPN that we'd provided to them, therefore an IP address, an internet address associated with us, to post something for a threat intelligence firm. They posted the words NHS ransomware and NHS leak ransomware test onto this pastebin site, onto this website here. That's all they did, literally it. That resulted in 8 police officers at my house, 3 at my colleagues, 3 at our offices. And the reason being is that they thought an angle of investigation was that this was kicking off the attack. That the ransomware was looking for these words in a particular file in order to kick off the attack. There were 159 views and 74 views, respectively. And then at that point, I knew we would be okay, because we're a sensible company. We keep logs. We understand what's going on. We try to do these things really respectfully. We understand exactly what's happening. So our client had pasted this. The IP address was associated with us. Therefore, they were able to link back that VPN server to us. They were able to go online and find the IP address through various different means of very, very basic investigations there. They were then able to find the filing in company's house to get through to us. And then they were able to get to us pretty quickly. And that produced those two documents that I showed there. So the warrant that they were served with gave them the right to extract information from and retain all electronic devices. I was had to provide them with logs in order to prove that we hadn't done anything wrong. In order to do that, we had to get access to those logs. And let me tell you, nothing is worse than trying to type a coherent text, kind of command line sentence than when a police officer is staring at you and considering whether to take you away or not. So we were able to get access to that. We were able to find that. We also found that during our discussions that the person who posted that actually on there, had their house raided by the NCA. We had the PSNI cybercrime team, who were a lovely group of people. Thankfully now they're a lovely group of people. They're pretty bloody terrifying that day. But his house was raided at 7:30 on a Monday morning. They'd seized all his electronic goods and devices and were only returned 3.5 hours later. And we were able to thankfully, we were able to prove our innocence. So we were able to find out that law enforcement can move pretty fast at times. We were able to find out that this happened on a Friday, and by Monday they had disturbed a judge, or I think it's a judge or a magistrate on a Sunday, probably at the golf course, to sign our search warrants, and thankfully waited until my children had gone away to school. We also found that these organizations talk a lot. The NCA talked to the US, who talked back to the NCA, who talked to the PSNI, who talked to the county court, who talked to me. There was a lot of money and time spent tracking us down. The user in England was on a dynamic IP address, which means it changes pretty much every time you go online. So they spent loads of time trying to find out who it was. Thankfully, he was an ex-intelligence person, and he knew what he was doing. So what we found from this is that everybody, you need to be careful. We pasted these things. We found that these things were pasted. But there were also posts about how to dox people, about various different kind of words that were pretty contentious at the time. People who were pasting things up that would have been illegal. We weren't pasting anything that was illegal, and yet we were brought in. We found out that the law around search warrants is pretty interesting. It could have dealt with seizure of all of our electronic goods for imaging and cataloguing. would have included laptops, phones, hard drives, encryption keys, passwords, smart TVs, all the bits and pieces in my house that make my house work, that would have been there. We found that the police didn't have to do this, thankfully, but I do actually know the fella now who served the search warrant, and he said that they were ready to ask nicely at the door or not, depending on what they wanted to do. But they could and would have completed a forced entry, including breaking down the door, if my father-in-law hadn't been in the house doing some painting. I had a marked police car sitting outside my house with my next-door neighbours saying, "What are you? What are you? Some kind of criminal? What's going on?" It was great fun. We also found out that if premises are searched, and it's done in accordance to a proper warrant and done in a completely lawful way, then no compensation is payable. So they could have broken the door down, broken in and got themselves through, and it would have been, and that would have been absolutely fine, and we would have had to pay for it to be fixed. So we found that we were very good at keeping our information. We also learned the value of so many of the people in this room. We've learned the value of solicitors. Because I was able to phone up pretty quickly and go, "Help, I don't know what's going on." And I did what every good person in a TV show does and said nothing until we had somebody there. But the solicitors were expensive, but they made it absolutely work correctly for us. It was worth every penny. Make sure everybody's done in the right way. We also learned that when you're working in this industry, you're working in tech, you're working in cyber and anything like that, you have to be careful. You have to be very cautious. If you're working from mum and dad's home, for instance, at some points, it could be their house that gets raided. And let me tell you, that is probably going to be a difficult conversation to have. We also learned that being discussed at Cobra, the NCA and various other agencies is a lot less cool than I had imagined. The officers we met were a lot more pleasant, professional and willing to listen than Jack Bauer would have been in that situation. I also wouldn't rush to a similar meeting with them under similar circumstances. These things have consequences as well. When you're coming to start a business up, if you find out that there is a search warrant on your house, when you're coming to get funding, when you're coming to get investment. So you have to be cautious. You have to be careful. And that brings me down to my third area of conversation, which is around how to prepare your company for growth. Could I ask the startups in the room to put your hands up? Who's competing today? Brilliant stuff. Very good. Lovely to see you. I have some kind of guidance that I would put in place for organizations who are starting in this world. My first one is find a partner for the journey. Working on a startup, working as a founder is hard graft. Yes, lots of nodding there. It's hard work. You also have to consider the fact that in our industry, or in our world, I'm the one who goes out and speaks to people, who gets work, who gets all that stuff. I also then can't be the person who goes out and shouts at them because they're not paying us on time, or they're being complicated or whatever. We have to have different forms of relationships. This is my business partner, Marc. I've known Marc nearly as long as I've known my wife. Very, very lucky to have a wonderful, wonderful business partner to go through this with. Couldn't do it without one another. As I say, I love to go out and talk to people and go and do stuff, and he makes sure we don't go to prison by paying the VAT bills, paying people, paying the inland revenue and all that sort of stuff. Find someone to join you on your journey. Your work timelines as a startup are awful. They are horrendous. You end up coming home and doing the invoicing. You end up coming home and looking for funding streams at the same time as trying to do the day job. It's absolutely horrendous. You've got to have a division of labor, working together and being there for one another. Now, they don't have to be a full partner in the business or any of those sort of things, but it is really important to have somebody along the way to help you out. Another thing that I think is really important is to put processes in place early. So changing something when it's already moving is very much more complicated than changing something at the beginning. You will need to change. Every organization needs to change. We've been going for many years and we're still changing every single day how we do things. But put those processes in place early. Put the idea of secure design. If you're developing a tech app, think about secure design. That's one of the most important things you can do. Think about what your bigger clients want. At the beginning, it's going to be all about going for a sale, going for a quick sale and getting the money in and all of that sort of stuff. But put in place things that the bigger clients want. We see startups coming to us asking for things like ISO 27001, cyber essentials, a pen test report, because the company is going to sign today if you have one of those three things in place. Great, that means we get loads of money, that's awesome. Oh, we don't have one, and the company can't do that, and it takes 6 months to get ISO, or 3 months to get ISO. We can't get that in time. That becomes a real issue. Your bigger clients also want some safety and security around this. So think about what you can do from that perspective. We have a fantastic, absolutely fantastic non-exec director who's been through the mill. It's a fellow called John George Willis, if anyone knows John George. John George is our non-exec director. He used to work at Chewins, has built up a consultancy firm. He's an awesome man who's been very, very brilliant and helpful to us. Try and find someone like that to help you along the way. Someone who's made mistakes, just like we've done. We've made mistakes. We've gone down stupid alleys and we've tried to do things in a different way. Try and find someone like that to help you out. It's a basic one. Shouldn't really need to say it, but I was actually speaking to Joan beforehand here. Make more money than you spend, if you can. Or at least make the difference very small. Make more money than you spend. It is a very expensive world out there. You will find also that there are good investors and there are bad investors. We worked with a client recently, over a long time, who've actually unfortunately just gone under, but they had a single investor. And it was someone who was, they either invested their money in this business or they paid the money in tax. So they paid the money into the business instead. But when that dried up, the company just folded because they didn't have any reserves. They hadn't thought about being efficient with their funds, being efficient. So think about that. Think about spending less money than you make. And finally, try to be a great employer. We try really hard to look after our people. We try very, very hard to make sure it's a nice place to work. We ask them for their opinion on things. When you're getting a team together, don't just rule from above with a rod of iron. Ask them. They have much better ideas than you do in many, many cases. One of the things I love, I think it was Steve Jobs who did it, who was a very complicated man at times, but he had one of his things was hire smart people and get them to tell you what to do. Brilliant. I love that. I have some really smart people working with me, and I listen to absolutely everything they say. If they say to do it, even if I'm not 100% on it, we will give 100% to it to try it out. And I think that's really important. So try to be a great employer and look after your team. Finally, some basic things that we should all be trying to do as tech companies, as organizations coming up in the world. Training, think about your people. Think about patching your servers. Think about backups. Think about planning what you would do if something were to go wrong. Think about your data. Where is it stored? Who's got it? Why have you got it there? Why is it stored in America instead of in the UK? Does that matter? It makes sense to do those sort of things. And I put in this last one around exercise in a box, a free tool from the National Cybersecurity Center to help you to understand how to protect yourself should something happen. Okay? So, just some guidance on those sort of areas. And then we look at the future. I was speaking with Rachel earlier. Is Rachel? Where was Rachel? I was chatting to her at lunchtime. Hello, Rachel. Yes. We were chatting about smart cities. Rachel's just finishing her PhD in smart cities. And do you mind me saying, if you saw the word smart and city together in a sentence, you might explode again. But I'm going to use it, so I apologize. But we're looking to the future. We're looking to see what this brings. So we're looking at, where the law takes us, the law with technology takes us, where the law with technology and AI takes us, into this world of smart cities where, you'll get an automatic fine through the post if you get caught driving too fast. It's all completely automated, that sort of thing. So I hope you found this useful. I hope you found it interesting. What I'm always trying to get across is this message about people. It's about people. It's about trying to make sure that we are helping to secure our organizations, that as you come up in this world as a company, that you're securing yourselves. You're thinking about security by design. And I'm also trying to get you to think about the combination of law and technology. My example was those two things coming together in a quite extreme manner. But thankfully, we had a good lawyer who understood technology. That's what we really hope for everybody here, is that you have an understanding of some of these technology things that are the technology that's taking place, and you're therefore able to do some really fantastic things in the future. My email address is up there. I should also, if I was any good at this stuff, I would also put a QR code pointing towards my podcast and my LinkedIn and all of that sort of nonsense. But I haven't, so you'll just have to look me up and see and see about that. Thank you so much to everybody for having me. Thank you very much to Joan and Kieran for bringing me along today. And I'll be hanging around afterwards if anyone has any questions or anything. Thank you so much.